All right, everybody, welcome back to Unleash the Potential. I know it's been a few weeks, but we've been waiting for our most excited guest. For me, so excited to have this guest on, Mark Toof with Sport Professional Management. He's been a family advisor for 13 years. Great guy. I am really excited to have him share all the different information because there's just so much stuff out there that, when players get into where to go, how to go, like find the route to getting the success that they're looking for, they usually get lost a little bit. And it's nice to it's nice to have someone like you, Mark, who can actually get in and actually help them navigate and get on the right path. Because I think that's just one of the most important things. And so Mark, thank you so much for jumping on with us. I really appreciate it. Honestly, I'm just gonna let you take it away. Tell us a little about yourself. Just kind of give us some information so that our hockey guys can actually navigate and get to where they actually want to be instead of end up 100 miles away from there. So.
Well, it's my pleasure. Thanks for having me. I really appreciate the opportunity. It's funny you say that as far as the path for these young hockey players to take, because there really isn't one path. And I know how much this has changed so much from when I played to now. I wish we had advisors when I was playing, because I would have loved to have someone sort of direct me and show me there's more than one path. There's this route, there's that route. And it's just really frustrating, I know, for some of these kids and these families, especially if mom and dad are not so much, quote unquote, the hockey people. Right. I will do my best to explain, and please ask any questions that you think of or come up, and we'll tackle all sorts of topics. As you mentioned, I've been doing this now going on my 13th year. My boss is a guy by the name of Louis Gross, who's been in the industry for almost 40 years. My best friend from childhood, who played 16 years in the National Hockey League, was a guy by the name of John LeClaire. We grew up from the time we were 6.
I know that guy.
But he's not a bad player. From the time we were 6 up through college, and then when he went to the National Hockey League, I started coaching, my coaching career. So we've always stayed in the game, obviously. And then Lewis approached John and I about 13 years ago and said, "Hey, I want some hockey guys that have played, that have coached, that can identify talent, and we'll go from there." I was all on board as soon as he even called me. I knew I wanted to get back into hockey. I missed it, so I was thrilled to jump on this opportunity. And it's very hard work. It's long. You're on the road a lot. You're traveling, but unbelievably rewarding when you see these young guys that you're helping and trying to steer in the right direction and help opportunity wise. And when they take advantage of it and they do things the right way and you see things work out, there's nothing better. So it is, I wouldn't want to do anything else. I really want it, no matter how much headaches come along with the territory and the travel and being away from home a lot, but sitting in cold rinks, it's not like you're hanging out in, on a baseball diamond in Florida. So you know what, you love it. And I do, and I wouldn't want to do anything else. So, basically what I would go over is a bunch of little topics that I wrote down that I get asked all the time from parents, from coaches, from players, you name it. And I think the biggest one, to be honest, is people need to be patient and they cannot be in a rush. This is a marathon. There's no sprints in this hockey world whatsoever. These people now think that they read a tweet, "Oh, this kid got committed, I have to be committed by this certain date." That's not true. It's the farthest thing from the truth. You cannot force these schools or these teams to say, "Okay, we want him, we have him because, Mark Toof said so." It's not true. It's not the way it works. They have to really like your son, your daughter, their game, their character. There's a lot of things that go into this. But everybody has a different path. Everybody has a different timetable. It's really important that mom and dad and the players understand, don't rush into this. Don't make rash decisions. Don't make emotional decisions. This is a long process, and hopefully you want to go through it once and you do it the right way, whether it's, juniors and then obviously on to college. There are so many schools, so many junior leagues and teams in different levels. I believe there is a spot for everybody, and it's important to make sure that you go to the right place. And that being said, and I'm sure you hear this too with a lot of some of the guys you train and work with. Everybody thinks they have to play for the NTDP or in the USHL. It's not the case. You have to be elite in order to play. Obviously, top 23 kid in the country to be in the NTDP, and it's a great program. They do a phenomenal job, but not everybody is a top 23 player in the country. So, okay, that's not my path. I'm going to go to path B. Is it the USHL? Maybe. It could be the BCHL, the NAHL, the OJHL, the AJHL. There are so many leagues. And I think what everybody needs to understand is you need to go where you're wanted and where you're going to have opportunity to get better, to play hockey, to play consistently, and not sit there and say, well, I just want to play in the USHL. Okay, well, some kids go there and they're on the fifth line, fourth line, getting 3 or 4 minutes a night. Are you getting better? Probably not. And are you happy? Probably not. Is it going to affect your school? Absolutely. It's going to affect you in ways you don't even understand. These young kids don't understand. So what we try to do is make sure opportunity is there. The coaches or the team have done their homework on these kids. They like their game. They think they're a good fit with their philosophy. And if it is, great. And then it's up to the kids to earn it. All right. Let's get something very clear. Hockey advisors don't get kids scholarships. That's not true at all. Okay. It's all based on how well they play. Me personally, when I go and watch and scout players, then one of the number one things I look for is I want character. I want good kids. You could have a kid who is absolutely the best player on the ice, dominating up and down without a doubt. But if he's not a good person and a good teammate and has high character, I'm not going to touch him. And that's just our group, our philosophy. We have definitely walked away from players before because we want those guys. I think hockey, more so than any other sport, if you have a bad teammate, it affects the team tremendously, just one kid. So you really need everybody to be on that same page. Good character, high character, leadership qualities. That's really important to me. I look for that without a doubt in anybody that I work with. That's number one. Kids who are choosing schools, colleges. There's a lot of great schools out there academically, hockey programs, coaching staffs are different. They have different philosophies. These young men and their parents need to do their homework. They need to look at the school, the coaching staff, if they're going to go on a visit or talk to them, ask questions. Ask a lot of questions. It's okay to ask these questions. Make sure they have seen you play live, not just on video. What do they like about your game? What do they not like about your game? What do you need to improve on? How many other players your position or your age are they recruiting? How many are you walking into a class of 15? That's a tough one. Or are you going to walk into a class of 5 or 6 and you're the one center that they recruited? That's a good opportunity. So that's huge, as well as making sure that the opportunity is there. And look, nobody's going to get a free ride, and we don't expect that either for our players. They got to go out and earn it, but the opportunity needs to be. That's really important. I always tell my guys this: live by this motto: go where you're wanted. Don't go because, hey, I'm going to go to Boston College because they've won X amount of championships and this guy played there. They might not even know who you are. They may not even know I've seen you play. You need to go where you're wanted. You're going to have a better time. You're going to enjoy your college career, your college life, have fun in school. That's way more important than saying, I just want to go here. It's great. Every time I meet a young player, one of the first questions I ask them, what schools are you interested in? I would say 95% of the time, they give me the same 5 schools.
Yep.
95% of the time. They don't even realize some of the other schools that are out there, how good their programs are. It's always the same schools. And I said, well, you and 200 other kids are all want the same thing. So make sure you do your homework, guys. That's really important.
Well, Mark, I think it's funny because it's just coming off what you're saying. It's just chasing labels, right? Like yes. I think it's the one thing that comes up every time I talk to, like you said, like you talk to someone and it's always, I want to go play. It's always USHL is usually, right? Like if you ask them like juniors wise, USHL, right? But how many times, like if you take a look at the actual statistics, right? Like you could see that there's players that go and do great things from other leagues. Absolutely. It doesn't have to be that. And I think it's just really, it's nice to hear that, it's not just, don't worry about necessarily playing the highest league. It's understanding listen, like bottom line, a hockey player is a chess piece. right? So like if
Right.
you can get on the right board where you're the right
Yeah.
chess piece, you're going to have a much better career development wise and all that, right? It's just,
Absolutely. Absolutely. You got to go where you're going to have opportunity to play, because it's the only way you're going to get better. If you're sitting in the USHL, is such a great league and it's so competitive that these guys, you now they, over the years, they've increased the import rule. So you're competing against Euros and Canadians, and I mean, the spots are getting less and less on the team. So it's really hard. And if you're sitting there getting 4 or 5 minutes a night instead of 15 to 18 or even 20 minutes a night, that's a huge difference. It's going to be really tough to get seen out there for these schools to say, we're willing to give X person X amount of money to come play for us out of college, when they're only seeing you play maybe a fourth or fifth line role and you're touching the puck a couple times a game and getting 3 or 4 minutes. That's not going to happen. So go to a different league if this is your scenario, play a lot more, get a lot more opportunity, become the player that you think you are and that your coach thinks you can be. You're still going to have opportunity to go play Division I college and get scholarships. Guys are getting pulled out of all those leagues I mentioned for scholarships, the NAL, the AJ, the BCHL, the OJ. I mean, you name it, the NCDC, they're all getting pulled out of there. So there's great opportunity in the leagues. You just got to make sure you go to the right one. That's the key, and do your homework, and don't just say it's this or bust, because that's not going to help you out.
well, actually, if I could just jump into one more thing on
Yeah.
that too is, I think one of the other parts is kind of coming back to, the top five, like there's 5 schools that like everyone always brings up, right? So now you have a player, really, really strong player, right? Just that is a really, really good player, but this doesn't have the name necessarily behind them, right? So let's say they go to a school that's, still like a D1 school, they're doing well, right? But they choose that school over, let's say, that top 5 school. What would you say to that player if, they want to take the next step to professionals, that kind of thing? Like, what would you say to kind of, how would you advise them in that kind of situation?
I think, again, like there's so many great schools out there, and some of these, not the big 5 or 10, but there's great coaches in college hockey across the board. And I'm not talking just Division I either. I mean, there's some great coaches at the D3 level too, and those guys are getting signed as well. Right. So it's about, again, where you're wanted, where the opportunity is. But I mean, for example, my guys who I started working with when they were younger and are now, playing pro hockey and playing in the National Hockey League. It's funny because none of them were drafted. So, none of the NHL teams thought they were good enough to get drafted, but all 5 of them now are playing in the National Hockey League and doing really well. And, some of them went to small schools. Some of them went to middle of the road schools for size, and, and then a couple went to maybe like a Big Ten school. But they had other opportunities, and trying to whittle it down to say, where do I feel most comfortable? Where do I sit on the same page as the head coach? Does he really like my game and he's not trying to change my game? Right. And I'm going to go there because I know this is what I can do to help a team out. And if the coach and the staff feel the same way, that's what I want to play for. Or are they a dump and chase team where I'm not going to have puck possession and I'm a puck possession guy? I cannot go play for that team because that's not going to help my game out. Right. So that's when I say do your homework, make sure it's a good fit with the size of the school, like a BU, that's a city school. You don't really have your typical college campus compared to something like a Vermont, or something like that. So it's got to be the right fit, size of the school. Do you want a huge school, Big Ten school where there's 50,000 undergrads, or do you want to go to Union where there's 2,000? Right. So there's a lot of different factors that come into play, and ultimately the player and the parent, they have to decide where he wants to go. Right. And what's the best fit for him, and where he's going to do great academically, socially, hockey-wise, and are you on the same page as the coaching staff? And that's what I think is the most important pieces when we have guys who are saying, hey, we're going to go visit this school. Okay, just be prepared, ask a lot of good questions. You're going to know. These kids, what we tell them, you're going to know when you go on 5, 6, 10 visits, one of these schools, something's going to hit you and you're going to say, I got to go here. This is where I want to go. I love everything about it. I love the conversations I'm having with the coaches. I love their philosophy. I like this. This is where I want to go. Rarely have I ever had a kid take multiple visits and say, geez, I just don't know. I don't know where I want to go. I don't love any of them. I honestly, I got to say, I've never had that. So something's going to click in them, and they're going to really fall in love with one of them and say, this is my school. And hopefully it works out. And unfortunately, from the time I started doing this job to now, it used to be a faux pas to say, you know what, I don't like it here, I'm going to transfer. And then transfer is a whole new ball of wax that, you know, you played games, now you're going to have to sit out a year. And although they are coming up with that new one-time transfer rule that it's not official yet, but it looks like it's going to be passed, the one-time basically free pass. Okay, you want to transfer? Here's your one time. You can do it. You're not going to have to sit out. But after that, if you ever wanted to do it again, you're going to have to sit out. And that's tough depending on what year of school you're in and what schools are interested in you. And, you know, they're guys who they already have on the team and who they know. And I mean, it's really tough to do that. So we always encourage our guys, take your time before you make your decision. Let's try to do this once and do it right and make sure this is the right choice for you, because it's not fun going through that for these kids. It's stressful. Parents, it's stressful. It's really hard. And we don't encourage guys to do that unless it's an absolute really bad situation where it's best for both parties to do that. Then we understand. But in general, we don't encourage guys to do that. I think the other thing, sort of touching on this, is there's always more than one path for players. Everybody always gets caught up with, I have to get drafted. I have to get drafted. I have to get drafted. And I mean, you know, with 7 rounds, with the, you know, a few of the new teams that have joined the National Hockey League and Seattle being the newest one to come on board, I don't think kids realize how many kids out there play hockey and how many you're competing against trying to get drafted. It is insanely competitive trying to get drafted. And if you don't, it's not, as I alluded to earlier, the end of the world. My 5 guys, none of them, actually, I take that back. One of them was drafted. The other 4 were not. And none of them ever were even entertained about the NTDP. Some of them didn't play in the USHL. They played prep or played in a different league. If you want it bad enough and you're willing to sacrifice and do the right things and work hard and take care of your body and train and all those, you can still make it. You can definitely still make it. The percentages might not be high, but you can still make it if you're willing to do that. And I think that's even more important when you choose a school, a college. There are a lot of guys, maybe they don't have the championships like some of the other schools, but they develop players, they put players in the pros, and they do a great job at that. And that's really important for these guys to look at and say, this coach has a great track record. You may not have 5 national championships, but in the last few years, he's put 20 kids in pro hockey, and they're all doing really well. That's important. If these guys want to, you know, eventually be a pro hockey player, that's really important for them. But understand, if you don't make the NTDP, the world's not coming to an end. If you don't get drafted, the world's not coming to an end. Hey, guys, you might have to buckle down and work harder and try to open some more doors. And it's not going to be as easy as a guy who is drafted, but you can still, if you're willing to do it, you can still get there. That's really important that we always talk to our guys about. There's not just one path. There's multiple paths. So not to give up if you don't get drafted. It's okay.
Well, it's funny, Mark. We had so one of the episodes that we put together was 2 of the players that we trained, and you know, the one thing I was really proud of them in that talk that we had was they talked about the love for the game, you know, and that, like, yes, it's about, you know, making it to the highest level and taking it to you know, getting everything you can, and like we like to say, unleash the potential, right? So like, it's all about that. But I loved more than, and I didn't put him up to it, by the way. That was not me telling him to say it. But I think that's the cool thing, is that you know, you gotta love it, right? Because it's the process, it's development. And the funny thing is, I think a lot of times athletes, you know, hopefully their careers end where they want them to, but obviously there's players that just, you know, they don't, whatever happens, whether it's politics, whether it's their commitment level, whatever, right? They no longer like want that, right? And I think that they don't realize that it transfers into real life. So whatever their next journey is, everything they learn Exactly. Like, 'cause it's funny. Like, and when people talk about, with hockey, why didn't you just save all that money and just put it towards college, and you would have had a scholarship? Yeah. Do you know how much the kid learned and experienced and went through? And like, it's amazing to me how people don't realize the amount of value that there is in coming up through the hockey. I mean, in sports in general, but
God, yeah. Look, these kids don't understand now because they're so young and coming up, and the parents don't understand. Adversity is good. It's good. And every college coach I know, and it's pretty much all of them, and talk to them. And if you talk to the pro guys, the scouts, those guys, they want these players to go through adversity. They don't want them to all be handed and, have a silver spoon and have the easy way the whole way up. They don't want that. They want guys who have been through the ringer, been through the trenches, have gotten kicked around and maybe didn't play in the top league or play in the top line. But guess what? They found a way to make it work and make it happen. And they're like, we're willing to sacrifice. Those are the guys that will make it in the National Hockey League. And these guys will tell you that every day, as long as as long as I can remember, any scout I've ever talked to, a college coach, we want guys who've gone through adversity. Those guys are key guys in our locker room. They're going to be successful. They're going to be the ones to find a way to make a living out of this and play in the National Hockey League or at a high level, AHL, Europe, whatever the case may be. But those guys do find a way. And looking at my notes, going back, one thing that if I could stress to all these young players is going back on what I talked about, character. I'm not the only one that obviously is looking for character. Every coach wants guys with character.
Sure.
But it's also about practice and practice habits. It's not just, hey, I'm going to go out and score 3 goals a game, then I'm automatically going to get drafted or I'm going to get put on this team. You never know who's watching. And so when people don't know who I am, and that's a lot of people because they don't always see me in certain rinks, and some people do, but I like to go into the rink. I don't say a word. No one knows who I am. I'm watching. I love to sit there and listen to the parents. I love to watch the kids, how they handle themselves on the ice. If they miss a breakaway, if they lose, if they take a bad penalty, whatever the case may be, I watch how they react, how they come back. If they, miss a great scoring chance, or if they have some adversity in the game, how mom and dad are handling themselves in the stands. We definitely have said no to players because of how mom and dad act. So it is across the board, and that's what they got to understand. It's not just, hey, my kid can score goals. He's going to the NHL. Unfortunately, it's not that easy. It's not how it works. You need to have great practice habits. You need to be a great teammate on and off the ice. You need to want to be a leader. You got to be coachable. I mean, there are so many, no excuses. They don't want to hear that stuff, They don't want a selfish player. It's not about me. Those are the things that can be honestly a team killer and a career killer. So what we always talk to our guys about is, hey, be as humble as you can. Guys that we have signing these big contracts, and if you spent 10, 15 minutes with them and you didn't know who they were, you would never know they're making that much money. And that's what I love about our guys that we have in our group. They're just so solid, grounded. And I think it's general across the board. Most hockey players are like that anyway, but we really look that heavily into background of our players and their character and how they are, because that's important to us. And they're representing not only themselves, their family, their team, our group, but that's really important. And as I said, when it comes now, it's so competitive. When these junior coaches, more so college than junior, are looking for these players, and they can only have, 23 guys on a roster or 25 guys on a roster, whatever the league you're talking about, they're going to be really picky. And they're going to say, if we're giving you X amount of money, guy, when I was in school, I think a full scholarship was 80 grand. You're talking about $225,000 now. That is a lot of money for these young men to say, all right, you're not going to screw up. You're not going to do this. You're not going to do that. Hey, guess what? You got a scholarship. Well, now it's so competitive. Some of these are year to year. And if you're not doing your job in the classroom and maintaining a certain GPA, or you're not being a good person outside of the rink and getting into trouble, that scholarship's going to be gone. And they're going to find someone who's takes advantage of it, wants to be there, wants to be a hockey player, wants to be a student athlete and graduate and get a degree. Those are the guys that they're going to go after. So it's really, really important to understand the big picture. It's not just because you're a good hockey player. You need to be a good person and a good student.
100%. No, that's huge.
No doubt, no doubt. But it is a process. I'm not going to lie. It's no one has all the answers. If they tell you they do, and they're lying to you.
Right.
Everything's different all the time. Look at, what our country's going through right now is horrible with this COVID, but it has changed so much regarding right now with recruiting and borders and guys who are supposed to go to Canada and play junior or vice versa. Like, everything's up in the air and nobody seems to have the answer. So all you can do is try to do some homework, try to keep them updated, try to keep them positive. But at the same time, there's a lot worse things happening in the world and in our country right now that's more important than hockey. So you got to put it into perspective right now and just hope that everybody's staying healthy and smart. And you know what? We'll deal with this as it comes along. And if we get thrown a curveball, then our job is to try to help these young men, find a solution, find an answer, and maybe a different avenue or a different path. But this is extraordinary, obviously, of what's going on right now. But in the midst is, hey, you need to communicate. You got to be honest. You got to be able to look at your own game and say, you know what? I didn't have a great game. Hey, Mark, what do I got to work on? And that's something that our group preaches to our players. If I come watch you play, I shouldn't say if, when I come watch you play,
Right.
when I watch you play online, when I watch you play in person, when I watch you, I'm not going to sit and tell you you're the best player on the ice if you had a bad game. That's not going to make you a better player.
Right.
I got to be brutally honest and transparent and tell you, hey, Steve, you know what? In the second period, I thought you were, out to lunch. You weren't competing.
Right.
You weren't winning battles. You weren't back checking. Like, I have to be that way with my players, or else they're not going to know what to go back and work on, or they can go back and pull up their game and take a look and go, wow, I see what Mark was talking about. All right, I can't do that again. I can't let that happen. I let my team down. I let myself down. I got to go back and work extra hard at this. Communication is huge.
Right.
Coachability is huge. And that's what you try to talk to all these players about. And guess what? Practice is important. Practice is important. They need to hone their skills and practice and take advantage of that. And these guys who are willing to put the time in with someone like yourselves and really train and eat right and do the right things, again, those are the guys that will have the opportunity to make a living at this if they want. The guys who are going to go and sit at the beach all summer and party and go on multiple vacations, you're gone. You're lost in the shuffle. There's too many kids that want it so bad and are willing to sacrifice and put the time in. Those are the guys that are going to make it. Those guys that just think it's a part-time job, those days are done now. This is a full-time job. Being a elite hockey player, basketball, football, it's a full-time job. And it all starts with, how you take care of your body, what you put into your body, and as well as anybody. And I know you go through this with them. It's that important, though. It really is.
100%. I think that's one of the things that, so for me, whenever I'm working with my guys, I mean, everybody knows I don't do I won't babysit. Like, if you're a part of our off-season program, I don't do the babysitting. I tell you one time, and then from there it's always the hard part. It's like, unleash the potential. Like we always talk about that, unleash the potential, unleash the potential. And for me, there's nothing more sad than when you see someone who has so much potential and they just can't get it together. And then you sit there and you hope that, like, hopefully something snaps and they just get it one day and they're just like, let's go. You're right. I'm all in 100%. Let's just get this done, And I'm wondering, like, for you, I mean, I'm sure, like, you've worked with so many different players over the years. So, like, how do you deal with that, man? How do you deal with, like, the kid that, just, like, so much talent, like, they're just oozing out of there. It's just coming out of them. Do you have any?
They might be missing another piece. That's no question. You see it all the time. Even with guys I don't work with, I see it all the time.
Sure.
You feel bad for the guys who are willing to do the right thing and play the right way, put the time in, train, whatever, but they may not have the elite skill set.
Right.
But if they can, I think the biggest thing right now in the world of hockey is you need to be able to skate. Skating is number one crucial aspect. If you don't have the quickness and the speed, if you haven't been to an NHL game recently, like in the last couple of years, and been down close and watched how fast this game is and how good these guys are, the time that you have to make a decision is literally a split second. If you cannot think the game, and you don't have that speed or quickness, you're not going to make it. It's just that simple. I mean, you can be the toughest guy in the block, but if you can't keep up with these guys out there, the team's just going to say, "Hey, bud, like, sorry, you're not going to play at this level. You can play at this level, but not at this level." So, working on off-season training to get to that quickness and that speed, that's definitely one key element. But you got to have the hockey IQ. You got to be able to make plays out there and think the game the right way. Even if you're not the fastest guy on the team, a lot of their coaches' philosophies are, if he's smart and he has that hockey IQ, we can teach him, and he's going to pick it up really quick, and he's going to be able to survive out there and still be able to make plays at this level. So you do have to have that hockey IQ. You really do. That's important. But those guys that have 8 of the 10 pieces or 9 of the 10 pieces, you support them. You try to obviously guide them along the way, and in the off season maybe work on this or work on that. But ultimately, it's that competitive. And if some guys just come up short, you hope that if they want to continue their playing career, we can try to find them another avenue if it's not the NHL to play. And even if it's for 2 or 3 years, maybe it's in Europe, maybe it's in the East Coast, maybe it's in the American League, but you hope they at least just have a chance to do that. And then, if they have to hang them up, they have to hang them up, and then we can help them transition into something else. You want to, get into coaching. You want to become a scout. You want to, we will do what we can to help our guys transition into the next phase of their life for sure. It's not just, hey, it was great working with you, see you later, goodbye. That's not who we are. We want to help these guys in the next phase of their life once they decide they're not going to play competitively anymore. But it's hard. It's hard to watch because there's a lot of really good players out there, and if they don't get that opportunity, and let's be honest, these NHL scouts will admit to you, every single one of them, they've missed some players, and missed out on players. They're not going to get it right every single time. They're human. And sometimes you see it. Some guys are making a career in the American League. They just haven't found that team yet that's given them that opportunity in the NHL. Once they do, they're going to blow up, and they're going to take advantage of it, and they will make a career out of it. But sometimes it's just waiting for that opportunity. It could be a year, could be 3 years. You don't know, but you got to stick with it.
All right. Well, let me ask you. So, real quick. So I know we're recording, but at the same time, we're gonna edit this part out.
Sure.
I wanted to, coming from what you just said there, I was gonna bring up. Hold on. So one of the things that I think, just coming from that, it's everyone kind of coming up, but I think the guidance is such a big piece of that. So, so that by the time you do get to that age, you've already had the guidance to that. So, I mean, Mark, how do you, for you, right, especially since this is your area, this is what you do, how would you, someone that, let's say there's a, whatever the age groups that you would start working with someone, right? What would you tell a family, right, of the parents, how can they do a better job of interviewing their family advisor, right? So they can navigate. Because I know for me coming up, I had absolutely no guidance. Like my parents, my dad, loved the game. He was with me every single day. I'm so thankful more than anything. I mean, we were in the car all day, every day, just like I'm sure the majority of hockey players could say that. But he had no clue what he was doing, right? He was just, we were just, I'm just going to keep getting as best as I can, do the best I can and continue to get better. So bringing it all together from how do you hire the right person, right? What would be your, right now, if you were to have to hire someone, right? If you were to step out of it and say, I can't do this job, I'm going to hire someone else for this person, right? What would be, maybe a couple questions? How would you interview them to say, all right, this is the person that's going to help me to the best of their ability. I truly, I'm going to trust them as much as I can with that.
Yep. That's a great question. Probably one of the best questions that you could ask, because when I first started 13 years ago, over the last 13 years, there wasn't as many advisors out there. It's amazing how many people now want to be a family advisor, and whether they have the background or not, I think a lot of them are just saying, I'm going to do this. I want to do this. You have to do your homework on whatever groups, how many groups you're interviewing. If you're deciding between 5, 2, it doesn't matter. Even if you have one locked in that you feel like you have a relationship with, do your homework on them. Ask for some people that they currently work with, that you can talk to them and say, hey, ask some tough questions that what you're going to get from that advisor. But I want to talk to the parents and maybe have my son or daughter talk to their son or daughter, as teenagers or kids, to say, what do you like about him? What do you not like about him? How is he as far as getting back to you in a timely manner, whether it's an email, a text message, a phone call? Who does he know? Who do they have relationships with? Do they focus on college players? Do they focus on major junior players? Because that's two totally different,
Sure.
areas there, without a doubt. We personally, we like our kids to get a college degree. We think it's important for them to go to college, play college hockey. I did it. John did it. We had a blast. College itself, just going to college is such an experience.
Sure.
No matter where you go, and then you come out with a degree, and hockey's not going to last forever. So we do think that's important. Now, that being said, I'm not bashing the major juniors, the W, the O, the Q. Like, they do a phenomenal job. They always have been. It's just college isn't for everybody.
Right.
And if that's a better route, then hey, you got our blessing, go that route. But a majority of our players are college players. I think these parents and the players, not just the parents, because eventually you got to cut that umbilical cord, and it's going to be the player and the advisor / agents that are going to be working together. So they need to have a relationship more so than mom or dad do with them. So the kid has to be really comfortable with them too. And let's face it, depending on how young they are, some of these kids don't talk a lot. You try to talk to them on the phone, it's like pulling teeth. They'd rather send you a text message instead of having a face-to-face, eye-to-eye contact, which I prefer, I like. But they need to do their homework. They need to see how big is the group or how small. These bigger groups, there's some huge groups out there.
Right.
And I think sometimes that can just you can become a number. And they don't really get to know you or your family. And they may have the name out there, like you said earlier, the label, but are they going to be there when push comes to shove? When they have multiple guys making them a lot of money and you're not, are they going to be there for you? Are you or your son or daughter a priority? Probably not, because they're like, these guys are the ones that are making us money. The smaller groups, middle-sized groups, how many guys do they have at your birth year? All right. If you're talking to, let's say you're talking to a kid who's an 02 and you have, okay, hey, Joe, how many guys do you have in your group right now that you're currently working with as an 02? We have 3, 3 or 4. Okay. That's a good size. You talk to another group, they may have 20.
Right.
That to me is such a conflict of interest, because now you have all those 02s and most of them probably want to go to college. How are you pushing this kid and not this kid, or talking about this kid and not? I mean, that's a huge conflict of interest. So size to me is important. I think that's why our group has had a lot of success. We like to stay on the small to middle size of the biggest we ever want to be and ever get to. I personally enjoy getting to know my players, getting to know their families, their parents, their siblings. And I think it really helps when push comes to shove. If everything goes as planned, and this player eventually is going to end up playing pro hockey and sign a contract, there has to be a level of trust there when it comes, because that's a major decision making that's going to come down the pipe, and they got to say, we know these guys have our back. And I need to know that these guys are always going to be honest with me, upfront with me from day one. That is crucial. So again, it's got to be the fit. And the more you talk to someone, the more comfortable or uncomfortable you're going to feel with them. And you're going to get a good vibe that, you know what, I'm not feeling it. I think we're going to go in a different direction, and we're going to go with this group because we like what they say. We like the size, the relationship that they already have with my son or daughter. He feels comfortable with them. Take your time. It's not a sprint. It's not, I have to have advisor tomorrow, I'm just going to go pick a guy. Don't do that. Do your homework and make sure, talk to other people. Maybe if you have some friends that have an advisor or teammates that have one, hey, what did you guys do in the process? Who'd you talk to? Why'd you pick this person? Like, ask a lot of questions.
Well, I think that's the interesting part, because I think so many times people think about, oh, but this person knows this guy and that guy and worked with this guy and that guy. And it's the same thing for me as well. Like, guys will say, well, oh, I know that guy, and so I want to work with you. I'm like, but how about we assess first? How about we sit down and we go through it? Because I'm going to tell you now, like, if I don't have chemistry with you and you don't have chemistry with me, we're not going to get the same result, and you're a reflection of me. So it's not going to, and I think so many times people worry so much about, like, who is this person worked with, instead of, can I connect with that person? Do I trust that person? Because that's the first part, right? Like, if I don't have that with you, then it doesn't matter where it goes.
No, and their friend who they play with could be a completely different player. He may be an elite player and you're not, and he may say, well, we work with these guys because we love them. They treat them great. They may not treat you the same way. So you gotta make sure you find that fit, and you will know when you start to meet with them and talk to them, and you're going to get a feel for these people. The more you talk to them, the more questions you ask, you're going to get a feel and say, okay, we're ready to make this decision now. Guys, half these kids honestly don't even need an advisor at a certain age until they get to this age level or this group where they're really super competitive, and hockey now becoming a lot more serious. Until then, it's okay. A lot of these people know coaches and scouts and stuff that they can probably hopefully rely on and talk to them and get their insight or input. But for the most part, a lot of guys don't need them, but they want to say, I have an advisor. And it's like, come on. You don't have to go down that road. You don't need that. Like, not every player does, but the ones that do, here's another thing. You don't need to go through them like laundry either. Like, the more a person changes his advisors, trust me, there is a red flag around your name. I've met people that have literally, by the time they're 16, have gone through 3 advisors. And I'm like, have you stopped and take a look in the mirror? Because it's probably not your advisors. All right. Let's be brutally honest and transparent here, guys. It's probably you. So if you're on your 3rd or 4th advisor and you haven't even got to juniors or college yet, that's a problem. That's a big problem. So you hopefully, like we say about college, if you do your homework, you take your time, you make that right choice, hopefully that's the only time you're going to go through that. Same with an advisor. If you do your homework, you do your job, you're ready to commit, you're ready to have that relationship and know that it's a two-way street, hopefully that's your only advisor you're going to have throughout your whole career. The more you jump around, the more your name's out there, the more red flags are going to be around it. So just think about that before you start just saying, I'm going to go with I'm going to go with this guy, I'm going to change to this guy. That's not good. It's not good.
100%. I think that's, it just shows your character in general, right? Like that's the bottom line. It's
absolutely.
You're switching teams all the time. You're always going to the team that's best instead of thinking about, no, that's 100%.
No, absolutely. Absolutely.
Well, Mark, listen, thank you so much for being on. Is there, I could tell you, I mean, there's so many gems in this. I'm looking forward to taking a bunch of it out. Is there anything that you want to finish off with? Is there anything that,
if you or anybody, obviously has any questions, I'm always available to answer. I love the game. I love helping people out and these kids out. We don't take everybody on. It's just not who we are. We have to be very selective too, but it doesn't mean I can't at least talk to someone and give them a little piece of advice or some instruction to say, hey, this is what I would recommend you do. Just trying to help people get in the right frame of mind or going down the right path, because I never had that. I had to figure things out on my own, and neither of my parents were hockey people or players. So it was like way back when. So it is hard. I feel a frustration with some of these people. And I know a lot of them are like, well, we're not hockey people. We don't know this coach and that scout. And so we're not getting doors open. How can you help us do that? If there's anything I can ever help with a young player and families to do that, I'll do it. But it doesn't mean that we're going to automatically start working with them and take them on as a client. It's got to be the right, like you said, what we've discussed, the right fit. And he's got to be at the right level where we think he's going to have a shot at obviously playing in the National Hockey League. And that's how we look at it, to be brutally honest. And again, no one has all the answers. It changes by the day, it changes by the season, it changes by the year, but we'd like to think we have a pretty good grasp of it.
All right. Thank you so much.
Absolutely. My pleasure.
All right.
All right. We'll see ya.